Unit 5 Daffodils. Assalamu alaikum. In this unit, we are going to study a poem by William Wordsworth. It's called Daffodils and is considered one of his most famous poems. But before we start the poem, let me ask you if you have ever seen daffodils.
Yes, sir. I saw them many times in the flower exhibitions. They are yellow in color and look like bulbs.
Yes, their basic color is yellow, but they may range from white to cream to pink or orange, etc. They have a central trumpet-shaped corona surrounded by 6 ring-shaped petals. They belong to the Narcissus family. You know, Narcissus is frequently referred to in Urdu poetry as well. And that reminds me, for a better understanding of the poem, let's first switch to the poetic mode.
Sir, sorry for the interruption, but what is the poetic mode?
Well, I mean, studying a poem is essentially different from studying a piece of prose. In prose, the subject matter or the content takes the central place, and our main task is to retrieve the information and comprehend the message. Whereas in poetry, the expression takes the central place, and as a reader, we are concerned with how the poet gives voice to his feelings and emotions, what impression the poem leaves on us, and what poetic devices are employed to achieve that effect.
Does that mean we need to learn some technical terms for exploring the poetic meaning?
Yes, but these terms are fairly easy, and we'll learn them in time. Right now, let's begin by knowing a little about the poet. William Wordsworth was born in 1770 in the Lake District, England. The magnificent landscape of the Lake District sparked in him a poetic genius. He developed a love of nature that later became his creed and earned him the title of the Poet of Nature. He lost his mother when he was only 8, and his father died when he was 13. With the help of his 2 uncles, he entered a local school and continued his studies at Cambridge University. His first poem was published in the European magazine when he was only 17. Later, he earned his fame as one of the greatest English Romantic poets. In 1843, he was made England's Poet Laureate. He died in 1850 when he was 80 years old.
Sir, why did he write the poem about daffodils?
I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, popularly known as Daffodils, is a lyric poem. It appeared in his verse collection, Poems in 2 volumes, which was published in 1807. The poet was actually inspired by a spectacular sight that he came across during a walk with his sister Dorothy around Glencoyne Bay in the spring of 1802. Wordsworth later composed this poem by making use of the description in his sister's diary, as well as his own memory of the daffodils.
Sir, what is a lyric poem?
A lyric poem typically expresses personal and emotional feelings of the poet. Usually, it consists of the first-person accounts of the thoughts and feelings of a particular moment. Now let's get to the poem itself. Will someone read it aloud for us?
Yes, sir. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills. Well, all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze, continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils.
Excellent. So, what's the poem about?
It's about daffodils.
What does the poet say about the daffodils?
Sir, he says once he came across thousands of daffodils when he was wandering like a cloud. These daffodils were golden in color and they danced in the wind. They looked like numberless shining stars in a galaxy. The poet felt happy in their company and did not realize how valuable this sight could prove for him in the future. In the last stanza, the poet recalls that the sweet memory of this spectacular sight fills his heart with pleasure and brings back the happy moments to cheer him up when he is sad or lonely.
You're right. And what is the central theme of the poem?
Sir, I think that the poet wants to convey his deep love for nature and its positive effect on us.
Exactly. In fact, this is a central theme in most of Wordsworth's poems. He believed that the relationship between nature and man is manifold. Nature is benign and acts as man's nurse and teacher. When we look at a beautiful object of nature, it's an exhilarating experience that comforts us and nourishes our spirit permanently. In short, nature has purifying, ennobling, and enduring impact on human beings. Now, is there anything in the poem that you couldn't understand?
Well, I'm not really sure what the poem means by the following two lines in the stanza. They flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude.
Well, you may paraphrase it as the daffodils reappear in my memory, which brings perfect happiness to my loneliness. Do you know that Wordsworth said that these were the two best lines in the poem, and that they were composed by his wife, Mary Hutchinson? Okay, now tell me what you feel after reading the poem.
I love the way these lines flow and rhyme. I feel like singing them.
When I read the poem, I can imagine the daffodils fluttering and dancing as though I saw them with my own eyes.
Lovely. The poem is so full of powerful images that appeal to our senses and leave a permanent impression on us. That's what makes the poem so successful. Well, is there anything else that you don't understand?
Sir, in the first two lines, the poet says that he wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills. Why does he use the word o'er rather than over?
Well, the poet drops the letter V and replaces it with an apostrophe to change a two-syllable word into a one-syllable word. He does it in order to maintain the rhythm of the line. The poets have the poetic license to make such little changes in the language if they desire so.
Sir, earlier you mentioned that the poets use poetic devices to beautify their expression. Can you tell us a little about these poetic devices?
Well, a poet uses certain figures of speech to convey poetic meaning. The commonest of these are simile, metaphor, and personification. Let's talk about these one by one. If two things are compared and a comparison word, for example, like or as is used, the resulting expression is simile. For example, look at these sentences. He behaved like a wolf. The baby's skin is fresh as a rose. Here, the pronoun he is compared with a wolf, and the baby's skin is compared with a rose. And the words like and as are used to make these comparisons. Now, can you pick out any example of simile from the poem?
Lonely as a cloud and continuous as the stars.
Excellent. Now we move on to metaphor. If we compare two things but speak as though the two things were the same, the result is metaphor. For example, look at these sentences. I never imagined he was a wolf in the sheep's clothing. The beauty cream will turn you into a rose. In these sentences, the word wolf stands for him and rose stands for fresh skin. But there is no comparison word used here. Do you find any examples of metaphors in the poem?
Sir, could we say the word eye in the line they flash upon that inward eye is a metaphor for memory?
Yes, although the word memory doesn't appear in the line, but probably that's what the poet means by inward eye. So we may say, inward eye is a metaphor for memory here.
And what is personification, sir?
When human qualities are attributed to an inanimate thing or concept, we call it personification. For example, the cruel sea or the smiling moon, etc. Now, are there any instances of personification in the poem?
Well, we have the dancing waves and daffodils in the poem.
Great. That's all for now. Hope you enjoyed reading the poem and talking about it.